Love Your Wife podcast. It's a Love Your Wife podcast. The Love Your Wife podcast. Love Your Wife. Love Your Wife podcast. The Love Your Wife podcast. The Love Your Wife podcast. Love Your Wife. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by aplanandplace.net. A Plan and Place sells customized planners for homeschool families. They help parents and students breeze through their homeschooling days. There's a planner for every age: early learners, elementary, junior high, high school, and homeschool moms. Right now, you can get 10% off your entire order if you go to aplanandplace.net/loveyourwife and use the coupon code loveyourwife. That's aplanandplace.net/loveyourwife and use the coupon code loveyourwife. A Plan and Place. Homeschool planners to help you breeze through your homeschooling days. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Frickin' Frack Foods. This is 5-star in a jar, made with San Marzano tomatoes, no sugar added, no preservatives, no seed oils, crafted by hand in small batch production. Once you've tried this sauce, there is no going back. My wife absolutely loves this sauce. Every time she gets an opportunity, she'll use it. I see her the other day, she dipped some steak in it. She just loves it. So if you're looking for this sauce, you can go to frickinfrackfoods.com or go to Sprouts. And if you live in Georgia, you can go to Publix. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Flashover Action Shots. Freelance sports and action photographer, firefighter owned and operated. She took action shots for me and my band's performance, and the pictures were absolutely incredible. If you're in need of action photography, Flashover Action Shots is for you. This is the Love Your Wife podcast with your host, Dennis Byrne. Today we have a very special guest, Brian Franklin. Brian?
Nice to be here. Thank you.
So Brian reached out to me because he wanted to be on the podcast, and he actually owns a company too. Would you like to talk about that briefly?
Sure. Well, we help people write their wedding vows, wedding speeches, ceremony scripts. So we deal with a lot of people that are in love, about to be married, but also people that are speaking in their wedding parties, like best men and maids of honors and fathers and mothers of the bride and groom, and people that have had some experience in marriage, but also have some things to say about it. So
nice.
Yeah.
Would you like to give yourself an introduction?
Would I like to give myself an introduction?
Yeah.
In which way? Like,
just
ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Brian.
Not like a Bruce Buffer type, but
Yeah.
just your background. You talked about what you did for a living, but
sure, yeah,
maybe your
okay.
background.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun background. I started out my professional life as a musician, and I was in bands and had a very brief moment of success, and really brief, and then went back to college and wound up in advertising, and I was doing freelance advertising for a little bit, and then wound up teaching because at the time my ex-wife and I we had a young son, and we were paying an exorbitant amount for health insurance. It was like $1,300 back in like 2003 or something like that. A lot of money.
Yeah.
So I decided to be a teacher, and I taught high school for 4 years while I kept my freelance advertising career going, or tried to, and I realized how hard teachers work, and at the end of the day you don't really have an end of the day, so you wind up grading papers and whatnot, and I watched my advertising income go down, and I realized that was not really sustainable with my spending habits. So I went back into advertising, but at that point I wanted to do something fun and more focused, and so I went into political advertising and ultimately wound up a political consultant, and did that for about 17, 18 years, running communications for different kinds of political campaigns, and as the political environment poisoned over the last 10 years, I say, I started to look for things that I wanted to do that were outside of politics, and I tried a couple of things, but but it was kind of by happenstance. I had written some speeches for friends and family who knew that I could do that sort of thing and was doing it for for politicians and helping political people prepare for their appearances. And then, and I was interviewing somebody on my own podcast, and it gave me the idea to be a ghostwriter for wedding speeches as a profession. And I looked into it, and I just didn't see a market that had been properly serviced. There were some people trying to do it, or some people doing it, but they seemed to be one-person operations. Then nobody really knew that this existed. When I started talking about it, the people that were at the top generally didn't know that anybody did this. And so it was exciting. It was a kind of a fun idea to try and break it open. And really, there's a big need for it. People have trouble writing, particularly for these kinds of moments. And the fear of public speaking also paralyzes people. And I think we're giving people the opportunity to feel more confident and say the things that are really in their heart.
Yeah. Did you start out as a songwriter?
I did.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes some sense.
Yeah. It's, I guess I've always been kind of a romantic, even though not all, most of my early work was just depressing.
Well, it's I think you're absolutely accurate when you say that there's a need for it. I talk to a lot of guys, me included. The first thing I did when I did my vows is I went to the internet and I Googled it, and well, like, what is it supposed to be? Especially if you're writing your own vows. If it's like in the church, then you're pretty much given a script.
Right.
But for me and my wife, we wanted to write our own. So I just had to follow a template. How funny is it supposed to be? How, serious is it supposed to be? Can I be myself, or do I have to pretend like I'm somebody else in front of my family,
Yeah. And that's what a lot of people do. I think, look, even if you're a great writer, try to summarize the love of your life in 1 to 2 minutes and make it fun and emotionally potent, and do it in a comfortable way in front of your friends and family. It's not an easy task for anyone. And ironically, when I got married 8 years ago, it was it didn't even come up as a subject. I don't know why I didn't think about it, but my wife did, and she felt that going up against a professional writer she'd be outmatched, and so she didn't bring it up. She didn't want to do it, and so we just didn't do it. And we made quick work out of the ceremony. And looking back, I feel like that was a lost opportunity for both of us to get up there and to tell people what we're doing and why they're here and why we love each other so much. So I think the vows, when they're personalized, are the best parts of the wedding. I mean, I think that's where you get that first person account of love. And a lot of people that come to the wedding don't really know your story at all, and they don't know why you're together. And I think it's fun and helpful, and it gives insight to those people, and they lean in. They get a little bit more invested in the rest of the evening. So for me, those vows become really exciting and if they're done well. If they're done poorly, they can be disastrous. But generally, they're done well, and or at least they're done, and it's better than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But
no,
you don't want to go. You don't want to go the template route. You don't want to go this ChatGPT route. We don't use AI. I think that's the idea is to do something personalized, not something generic and robotic sounding.
Yeah. I've only just recently started using the ChatGPT. It's crazy the capabilities that it does have.
Oh, it's amazing, but there's certain things I think that have to be in your words, or something like that,
with a human element.
And part of my job is to tell people what not to say.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, because some people don't want to. They want to put stuff in there that shows a little bit less judgment than you might for those moments.
Any examples?
Well, I mean, I think I had one groom that wanted to talk about how great she was in bed. That one stuck out.
Maybe if it's like a Vegas wedding.
Yeah, the bigger problem becomes in wedding speeches, not the vows. I mean, usually the vows, the mistake that's made is to get too cliched or to, pull phrasing out that everybody's used and everybody's seen. I think that's more common, but in wedding speeches it can get ugly.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So one of the first questions I like to ask is, do you love your wife?
Oh my God, yes, yes. My wife is amazing. I will love her for a lot of different reasons.
And you said you were married previously, right?
I was, yes, yes, to a very nice person. I think we were mismatched, and I think I made. I think when I got married fairly young. I mean, I met her when I was 21. She was 6 years older, and I think there were a lot of decisions made that I felt along the way that perhaps I was just rolling with it. I had my music. She was very accommodating of the things that I wanted to do. And I felt like at one point I felt like we just had two completely different lives. And, it just didn't, we just stopped connecting. And that was, but in that case, it was, I think, a good thing that we stopped connecting. It just wasn't, we were not right for each other in and on, looking towards the future. It just wasn't going to work. But I met my forever wife through work, and absolutely fell head over heels for her, and that was pretty much it. We took off like a rocket ship.
Yeah, I like bringing up that stuff when somebody's been married before. I was married before, and I think when you've been married before, you understand kind of the mistakes that you made, and you try
For
to
sure.
correct those mistakes.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
another thing is, there's a light at the end of the tunnel for people that might think their life is over after a divorce. That you can be happy again. You can
Without question.
remarry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, look, failure can be your best teacher sometimes, right? And sometimes people get married too young before they've really figured out who they are as a person. Sometimes people are great and perfect for each other, but the challenges of maintaining that relationship, they're not built for. And so, I think I had all of the above in the, look, I was not an easy person. I don't think, I think a lot of the habits that as I get older and I realize, especially talking to all of these couples, you're reminded about how good it could be, and the kinds of communication skills that people have now that that I didn't necessarily grow up with. Although I have wonderful parents who are still together, they had a perhaps more volatile style of communicating with each other than most people do when they're young and married today. So I think for me, I had to learn a lot of things to be successful in this marriage, in my current marriage, and even, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but I think even then it's taken a lot of work to maintain, not because of any lack of love, but just because life and stress can get in the way of good sense.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the vows thing again. I just recently had a guest on, and he talked about remembering those vows when life gets hard, and if you have your vows written down, like I still have my vows written down, on the 5-year wedding anniversary, we took our books. I gave her her book, I had my book, and we reread to each other our vows, just like a nice little remembrance to them.
Yeah, I think you should put it on your wall. If you've got them, have them written out if they're not already, and stick them on your wall so that, on those bad days you can go and as you're, just walking around, you can go see it and maybe pick up a line or two about why you love each other, and or why or why you did. but it's crazy because I do these hour-long interviews of these couples, and sometimes it's one of the two that need help, sometimes it's both of them, sometimes occasionally I'm asked to help and they're intending on not telling the other person that they're getting help, which is interesting.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Starting off
which,
with a lie, maybe.
yeah. I mean, I understand, because there's I think there's a misperception that if you get help, it's not yours anymore.
Okay.
But I think that perception is entirely false. That what you're doing is getting help, making it yours instead of going to a template or chat GPT or whatever, and so but whatever, that's their choice, it's their marriage. But as I'm interviewing these people, some of the questions that I ask them involve conflict. What do you tell me about how you guys make up after a fight. Even when you're not in a fight, when someone's in a bad mood, what do you do to, what's the prescription to get them out of that bad mood? What do you do? What works? And of course we get into all the things about how they met and what they love each other, but we are, sometimes the fun is what annoys you.
Yeah.
What does he do that annoys you, and what do you do that annoys him or her, and that kind of thing. And so the answers there open up new thoughts in my head where I'm like, okay, well, what do I do? Or that's a good idea. I heard one the other day, and she didn't come up with it, but she read it in a book. But it's like, if you're really in a big fight, or an argument, you should stop in the middle of that and slow dance for like a minute.
Oh.
And I was talking to, my wife's name is Nicole, and I was talking to Nicole about this, and 2 or 3 days later, we got into a little tiff about something.
Mm-hmm.
And then we said, all right, you want to dance? And we did it, and it worked. We laughed. It was crazy.
Nice.
So, you learn stuff.
Yeah, I definitely haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah.
One of the things that a couple people have been saying is have a pause, right?
Yeah.
Try to pause your fight, come back to it when you're less emotional, whether it be 5 minutes. Some people maybe a half hour to half a day. But I like the slow dance idea. I think it's a little bit romantic too. I think my wife would be into that for sure.
It took a little bit of therapy on my end to understand that people process conflict in different ways. I knew that intellectually, but I think I really needed to understand why. And a lot of it has, some of it's just that it's too overwhelming to really know what to do next. So people resort to pushing back in ways that that seem illogical, but it's just a way to get out of the situation. And and that's why I think, for me, I always wanted to just like figure it out and settle it right now, like there. It's not enough to walk away from it. But sometimes, like, Nicole likes to just settle down before she figures it out, and that would require me to just hold on and
take a step back.
What do you mean? You're not going to answer me? No, I'm not. Wait, what? And as I've gotten to understand that better, it's allowed me to let that happen and see what happens, and it's been working.
It's awesome. So you talked about that you met your wife at work. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I met her at a conference years prior to us dating, and then we wound up falling in love like 2 or 3 years later. We were at another conference. We saw each other, and things were different in our lives, and but there was a central problem. I had an 8-year-old in Florida where I lived, and she had 2 young kids, I think 9 and 3 or something like 9 and 3 in California. And so how would we even be able to do this? Because no one was going to move.
Yeah.
And this is where my sales skills kicked in.
Nice.
I mean, love is love, right? You do what you have
That's
to
right.
do. Right? I was working as a political consultant. I knew I could work remotely. I mostly worked remotely. I rarely had to be anywhere. It probably would have been better for my career if I hadn't done that. But I carved a way to work remotely no matter what. And at the time, this was around like 2010, let's say, and Virgin America had just been introduced as an airline in not that long prior, and they happened to have, one of their big things was they were the first airline to have fleet-wide Wi-Fi that was reliable. I mean, they had just started GoGo and some of those other things, but they had Wi-Fi that worked. In fact, it worked better than it did like 5 years later. But when everybody got on it, but because they had a direct flight from Fort Lauderdale to LAX, and it just worked. I was able to work on the plane. It didn't matter that I was losing 5+ hours and by being on it, and as long as I could email and message people, it worked. Mm-hmm. And so I convinced her that my schedule with my son was 6 days on, 8 days off. So because I needed that for the travel that I did do. Mm-hmm. And so I took those 8 days and I would go to California I get on the plane. I'd be out there, 7 days. The 8th day I'd come back, pick up my son. I'd have 6 nice days with my son, and then I'd get back on the plane. Did that for 9 years.
Wow. For you.
Yeah. Richard. So at some point I'm sitting on a plane. Of course you get status after a while. And to be fair, Nicole would come, once every 6 windows or something like that. She did her fair bit of traveling, but it wasn't as regular as I had. Her schedule was more difficult. And so, and summers we were able to break it up a little bit more. But generally speaking, I was one week or the other, I was going one way or the other. And I befriended a guy that worked for Virgin Productions, and towards the end of the towards the point where we were getting married, I reached out to him and I wrote a little note of thank you to Virgin America that I'd like, I just wanted to pass it along to his boss, Richard Branson, and which basically said thank you, because there's no way, I'm getting married, this is working out, there's no way this would have worked if you and your team hadn't had the vision to put fleet-wide Wi-Fi on and market it as that, and that's really what allowed this thing to begin and take off and happen. And so and so it was just a silly little note, and sentimental. I probably had a couple cocktails on the plane,
Nice.
and so then I got a note back that Richard wanted to write a little blog article about it, and he did. Oh. Yeah, he basically said, "This is why we do business," and it was really cool. But we did it. I sold the house in Florida after 9 years. Moved to California. We had this idea because we were holding 2 places, and my son was like 16 and a half, and he had a girlfriend and a car. I never saw him. So I was like, okay, let's sell the house and I'll stay with my parents in Fort Lauderdale for like 8 days. And we'll change this up a little bit. And he was okay with it. Not incredibly pleased, but he was okay. And then we did that, and then COVID hit. And so I couldn't fly and see my parents because they were, they're old and I didn't want to kill them. And so I didn't see my son, but we worked it out, and we got through it. But it was interesting for my wife too, because I don't think she realized how much I don't think anyone realized how ADD I was until I got there after 9 years of flying backwards and forwards and doing this and doing that. We'd get out here, we'd be raging because we hadn't seen each other in a week, and then raging in a good way, and then and then suddenly it was like 2019, and all of a sudden, like no, we're not going out every night. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
My energy level was very high. Probably still is.
So, what was it about your current wife that made you want to do those things? Made you want to have that 9-year relationship where you're
Well,
flying across the country?
yeah. First of all, she's, I think, aside from being beautiful, and she's really, um, uh, she's really hot. But aside from that, uh, she is, she is truly a remarkable person. She's one of the funniest, if not the funniest person I've ever met in my life. She is
Nice.
deadly with her comedy. Very different than my way of approaching. I write a lot of jokes. I mean, part of my job is to be funny. But I'm more of a quantity person. I go for the cheap, quick laugh, right? And she, and I'm obviously a talker. She's the kind that'll sit back and wait and wait, and then hit you with that one joke that you wish you had written, that one thing that kills you. And so I think she killed me with her humor all the time. She's funny. She can be silly. She can be incredibly silly. She's just a great personality, and she's smart. She I think we complement each other very well. I'm in the areas that I'm pretty dumb, she's smart, and I think in the areas where there are a couple areas where she's smart, but I'm a little bit quicker, and I think we're good at segmenting those things so that both of us, somebody's got some sense in their head at some point, most of the time. So,
would you like to talk about how you proposed? And did
oh
you
boy,
propose at the
yeah.
9-year mark?
No.
Okay.
See, originally she was thinking that she didn't want to get married until I could live out here full time.
Okay.
She's like, I want to live with my husband like full time. And I'm like, come on. I had worked it out. Like, I worked out the numbers. I see you more than a normal married couple sees each other if they're working in different places. If you're coming home and you get you get 2 or 3 hours of actual FaceTime, right? By the time you get home and before everybody passes out. And I should mention, we work together. We've worked together now for gosh, 7 years, 8 years. I think we full time. Okay. So when we're together for 24 hours. I'm upstairs, or sorry, I'm downstairs. She's upstairs in our offices, but we're home together, and we deal with each other all day long. So I think it's even more intense. But she didn't want to get married until then. I convinced her that I thought we could and should. It worked out great because we got married before COVID in 2017. But the proposal was a big pain in the ass because she mentioned she wanted the kids to be there. Mm-hmm. The problem with that was that my son, being in Florida, her kids in California, they only got together like twice a year, summers and winter break, and that really was very limiting in terms of how and when and so at any rate, I knew we would all be together at my cousin's wedding, and I know people shouldn't do this, but I did it anyway. But it was the only way. It was the only way. He's fine with it. They were fine with it. They think that's funny, right? But it was the only way, or I'd have to wait for 6 months and recreate a whole another reunion. And I didn't know what you never knew what the story was going to be with the kids, because their father would take them on vacation or something like that. You just didn't know if the timing was going to always work. Mm-hmm. So I got these the idea was that my son was going to go ahead of me. I had gotten these 3-inch letters that I hand glued these tiny shells to and burning my hands like for 3 weeks. I was like gluing these shells to these letters that ultimately would say, Nicole, will you marry me? Right. And so the idea is we're going to go to the beach. We're going to get to the hotel. The kids are going to run to the beach because they want to see the beach. We're going to let them. Then my son's going to plant the letters, kind of cover them a little bit with sand. The girls are going to help. And then he's going to call me and then say, hey, you got to see this. No, you got to see this. And I'm going to drag Nicole down to the water, and then we're going to do it. Right. Well, and I had even kind of figured out how far the beach was from where we were going to be. None of that was correct. It turned out the beach was the path to get to the beach was way further. It was a hot day. We were overdressed for the airplane. 7 days prior, at the time, our youngest one was 5, I think, or 6, and she told Nicole, I don't want you to get married, right? Right. So I couldn't involve them yet, right? I wasn't sure how they were going to react. So I told them at the airport on the way, and we all met at the airport. They had zero notice. Nate, my son knew, but everybody, no one else knew. And then, so okay, so we get it all set up. We get the phone call, and Nicole doesn't want to go. Tell him to come back here. No, I'm hungry. I want a drink. We had just sat down. Tell him to come back here. I'm no, no. We gotta go. We gotta bring him back. We gotta come up. No. And so finally, I convinced her. Now she's annoyed, right? She doesn't want to do this. This is right. And again, now it's hot out. I'm trying to hold her hand. She goes, "Don't make this romantic."
Oh no.
Has no idea, right? Just absolutely and so we finally get down to the path, and we finally pull and then it went well, and her first response was now, right? But and then the kids all cheered, and at least until the reality of the whole thing set in with them that she's marrying me, but it was just such a disaster, but it was also so funny. I love it. I got the end on video. It was great. So,
well, good thing you were persistent.
Yeah,
I think a lot of guys would have aborted probably.
I know
both those little hiccups.
I know, but I spent 3 weeks doing those shells. I had a feeling this was going to go well, right? But it was that it would work out, But it was just. But when she was telling me bring him back, I was like, oh God, no, please, So, but it worked out, and no, it's been great.
Did you give a little speech with your proposal?
No, I was too shattered at this point. It's funny because I'm now, this was all before I had the business, but now I actually offer help with proposals because some people want to do a little speech and don't know how. So we do that. I don't really, we don't really get a lot of that business, but it's there. And, but no, I didn't. I should have. But at that point, I was just trying to get through it. I knew there was only so much time before she had to get back.
Yeah, for sure.
Get her a sandwich. But yeah,
I think that's the movie's fault. I go back to that. The movies and TV, they make it seem like you got to say something, like a speech.
It's great if you
powerful speech.
Look, it's
put so much pressure on you.
It's absolutely great if you can, and if you can't, you can reach out to me. But I think it would be great if I had something. Look, if you don't say, what do you say? I love you, or just get on a knee and will you marry me? It's fine.
Yeah.
But it's fine. But I felt a lot of pressure to make the proposal a thing, like something creative, and we managed to do it, but it was kind of an accident.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did you have a big wedding or a small wedding?
It was 105 people or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's what people are going for nowadays.
Yeah.
They're not really going for the big ones, like a huge
look,
one.
I mean, I'm seeing it all. I ask people, and some of them are doing 40-person weddings. Some of them are doing, but like they'll do 40 people, but they'll do it really high class for those 40.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a load of sense.
I think if you got the resources to throw a giant party, and then great. If you don't, I just make it yours. I think these things can get carried away, and then they become something that doesn't represent you. But I think the ones even at the highest levels, I think, can be very personalized, and I think that's you want it to have the spirit of you as a couple.
Mm.
And sometimes that means something more intimate, and sometimes it means a big giant party with everybody that you can possibly think of. So I leaned toward the latter. I wanted to have a big party. I felt like we had done so much work to be together.
I would agree.
And I wanted, and a lot of people couldn't believe that we'd get to that point, right? There was a lot of skepticism that you could do a cross-country relationship the way we did it, and make it work. And I think there was a part of me that wanted to just make it clear that we did. So
that's great. You hear so many times that the long distance thing doesn't work. You hear it all the time.
I always said, I don't think I invented this, but I always said that the only thing that was worse than doing it was not doing it.
There you go.
Which is pretty much like the theme for marriage sometimes, like when you're in those moments, but that's what keeps you together through the, yeah, this sucks, but I'm not it's gonna be worse over there,
Yeah, for sure.
I don't want to be without you, I just want you to like me, and you work at it.
So what's the thing you remember most about your wedding?
Wow. Well, my 16-year-old stepdaughter, or 16-year-old at the time stepdaughter, did an incredible speech, roasting the hell out of me in a fun way, in a really funny way, and wrote it herself, and she rocked it. I mean, like, all of my friends were dying. That was one of the things. I think standing at the altar, just when we finally, when our friend finally declared us as married, I think I had that wave of like, we did it, and it was just such an emotional thing to see, like, people that had flown across the country to be there, and old friends, and just people from all parts of my life, to see that that support was something I remember just kind of burning into my head a bit, outside of that, wow. It was funny. One thing that sticks out is that we were dancing, we were doing our thing. We finally go to sit down to eat. We were kind of late because we weren't ready to just eat. We were too wired. So we finally go and to sit down and eat. We ask the waitress if we can have some of the bolognese, and and she didn't understand us, so she brought us some boiled eggs. She came out with a bowl of boiled eggs. We're like, what?
It's like, yeah, I'll be right back with that.
Yeah. She looked, that was kind of funny, but we had, it was a great party. We were really, really happy with the way it went down. But now being in the wedding industry and seeing some of the creativity and the things that people are doing, it feels very simple, what we did, but it was great. I mean, I think the main thing is we had the people we wanted there, and we had plenty of booze, and and the food was good, and the DJ was rocking, and we all had a great time.
That's awesome. I was reading on your little notes here. You wrote how to put humor in your wedding, and I think that's a good thing for not just vows, but having your daughter roast you a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Look,
that's hilarious.
I think in a healthy relationship, and joking aside, I think we have an incredibly healthy relationship. But in any healthy relationship, things make you laugh. I mean, there's just funny moments, even if they're small, that amuse you, that things you tease each other about, or just habits. I mean, we're all a little bit messed up in some way or another, and we do funny things, we make funny mistakes, we act ridiculously in private because because we're with the person we trust, and we can be dumb and goofy and all those things and not feel a sense of conspicuousness. And I think you have to bring that humor into your wedding at some level, whether it's the ceremony officiant saying it, or you guys putting it in your vows, but I think that aspect of your relationship should be highlighted at least to a small degree. And I think it also provides a nice counterbalance for the mushiness that that the sentimentality that you want in the wedding too, and is really important. But when it's all serious and all love, it gets a little bit onerous, and especially for the audience, who might be filled with people like me who like to make a joke out of everything, and so but you want people to laugh a little bit. It provides a little bit of a break, and I think, as you said, you play some music too, and it's like you treat it like a set list or a song, where you're not doing the same thing the whole time. You want there to be fast and slow. You want there to be ups and downs, and that presents the dynamic, that gives you the dynamics that keeps people's attention. But it also is also kind of metaphorically similar to your life, because that's your life together is going to have ups and downs, and it's going to go fast and slow.
Yeah, that's awesome that you brought that up, because I like writing the set list for the band.
Yeah.
Because I just love how you can make it go up and down, and then make one song sentimental and then flip it,
It's a journey,
I
right?
love that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a journey. And I think from a delivery and pacing standpoint, if you don't do that, and even within a song, like, you have to have those dynamics, or else it's just going to sound monotonous for 3 or 4 minutes. And it's also, by the way, another great lesson for anybody that's giving a wedding speech, because people are like, oh, 10 minutes. No, that's no problem, right? Yeah, go listen to a 10-minute song, right? Right?
Yeah, that's a good
point. Go listen to a 10-minute song and tell me that you wouldn't rather it be 4 minutes, right? It's something that you just have to pay attention to. So
yeah, I didn't realize that until so I'm a firefighter, and I had to take a class, and it was a class in teaching. So they said, whatever you feel comfortable with, you can teach. I think it was 5 minutes. So I picked football. I was like, oh, I'm going to nail this. And I get up there, and then, like, 2 minutes in, I'm just like, I don't know anything about football. It's like, where did that happen? I thought I knew it all. Yeah. It's crazy. I think that's what it's like with speech writing too, would be my guess, right? You have these ideas, and you're like, oh, I can wing it. And then you get up there, you're 2 minutes in, you're sweating.
Well, you're also like, not paying attention to how much time you can get up there and wing it.
True, yeah.
And it's hard to know how much time you're spending when you're winging it. There are pauses as you think about things that become kind of awkward. And I always recommend that people, we're getting off topic, I know, because this is not about the marriage, but I always tell people, if you're giving some kind of presentation, that you should write it out completely and practice that. And then you can always ad lib around it, but you should have the words written the way that you want them written, so that you can practice speaking them that way. And then you get some muscle memory, and you start to be able to do it with some flow, and that allows you to give the true emotion. Then you can make eye contact. Then you can start thinking about your tone, and whether you should lift it up a little bit, or whether you should get a little closer to the mic and get a little bit more intimate. So anyway,
yeah, it's like when you're learning how to play. Do you sing? You play and sing?
I do. Yeah.
It's like when you're learning how to play a song that you're trying to sing. It's like if you do it too quickly, you're like, oh, maybe I don't know the song right. So when you're trying to sing it, you just kind of sputter over it.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So you met your wife while you were in the politics, right? Politic
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. She actually, her and her boss hired me for some campaigns, and
Okay.
because I was doing more of the digital advertising at the time, and that was something that they needed.
So when did you make that switch over to what you're doing currently?
Uh, 3.5 years ago,
Okay.
almost 4 years. Yeah.
And is she working with you still?
Yeah. Yeah. We did
Yeah.
this together.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, um, when I had the idea, I put up a website. I got a client like the next day. I knew there was something here. I hadn't figured it out, but we were still working politics. We were doing campaigns that year, and um, and we were pretty busy. And it wasn't until I think November of that year, we started in May, and I was just dabbling at it. And it wasn't until November where we went to like this big national conference, both of us, and we walked around with our cards and talked to people. And she saw the excitement and the look in people's eyes and their reactions firsthand. Because one thing for me to say, yeah, people seem really interested in it, but
Mm-hmm.
obviously I'm a sales guy, and so she's she learns that I get a little excited sometimes. So she needed to be exposed to it directly, and she did. And we were walking out, and she goes, you've had a lot of cockamamie ideas in the past, but this isn't one of them. And I said, this is like as we're walking down, we're getting down the escalator from this conference, and I said, well, what we need to talk about what that means, like
Mm-hmm.
what does it mean to do this? And so we went to dinner, and we had this great dinner, and we talked about what we were willing to sacrifice and what could happen. I mean, because we're talking about leaving a successful career to go into the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And but we both kind of hated it, and we wanted to get out of it. And we saw the writing on the wall, and we wanted to get excited again. And so we took the leap, and it has not been easy. It wasn't easy to get it rolling. We, like any other when you go into a new industry and you don't realize all of the things that the unknown unknowns, the Rumsfeldian unknown unknowns, things that you just didn't know to anticipate, that you couldn't have thought of, and especially for us, because this is a new niche for the wedding industry. We couldn't look at somebody else and really understand what they did. And so we made some errors, or I made some errors in terms of marketing and things like that, and it took a little while to dial in, but now it's rolling, and we're feeling really good.
Nice. I'm glad you brought that up, the conversation that you had, because I feel like a lot of married couples, when they're going to go into business, that conversation, I'm really interested in the conversation. Like you had your life on a career path, and now you're just gonna turn it, to the
Yeah.
unknown.
Yeah. And, there have been times where I thought we were driving right into a wall, right? And, and it's still, there's still things that we have to accomplish to make this thing more successful, so that we can do the things as a couple that we want to do, and live the way that we want to live. But there's something bigger than that too, which is that we have this shared dream. And it's not just my dream, it's our dream. And it's something that we're both working on. We go to sale when we're selling, we often go together. We go to events together. We're in it. And, much like people that are in music, that you kind of have to be in that van and going from you have to sacrifice your future for the sake of your future, right? and at some level. And so yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I have decided this will be my last job. Like, I am doing this thing, and if I have to change my lifestyle to accommodate it, then I will. But this is my passion project for sure. And I think she totally not only understands that, I think she's on board with it. I know she's on board with it. She's in it.
What part does she have in it? Does she help with the speeches as well, like writing the speeches?
No, she does all of the back end. She does all of the admin, and she does some of the sales. She does a good portion of the sales and outreach to people, and it's also interesting because we have very different styles of doing that. But I'm the one interfacing with the clients, and we have other writers that went the times where I've gotten overloaded, we can bring in other people, but generally we've been able to handle it, and it's a very high touch service, so it works out really well.
Yeah, it's nice that you guys can be in business together.
It is, it presents an interesting challenge too, because during the day, if I'm stressed out from from work or something, or the situations or whatever it is. I mean, there was a period of time where I was transitioning between politics and this, and I was working both of them, and I had this really terrible client in politics at one point, and it was driving me crazy every day. And then I'd have to get on the phone and, hey, talk about love, and and there was a time, and we were going under a lot of stress. She had she's a breast cancer survivor, thankfully caught it very early. We lost our best friend in 23. All of this happened the same year. It put a tremendous amount of strain on us and our marriage, and we were stressed out and worn out, and then you have to get on and talk to engaged couples, right? But I think one of the things that allows us to be able to work together is that we're really on board the same mission. But I had to also remember, both of us have had to remember that, like, when you're stressed out because of work, you can't carry that too far into your relationship. It's just, you have to be able to remember that, like, to smile when you see him in the lunch, in our kitchen, the lunchroom, it's not, sometimes you're in a really bad mood, and you still have your spouse, like, that's right there. And you gotta find it within yourself to try and think about something else other than the thing that you're thinking about. Yeah. And that can be really hard. And it's really hard for me sometimes, because I'm just, I get a head of steam, and it could have nothing to do with her, and I'm just like, okay, we're gonna do this, and then and then I forget that I'm supposed to be Brian, the nice husband, right? As well.
Yeah, we get stuck in our roles sometimes.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah, but that's when sometimes you just have to have those conversations, and or it gets to a point where you're going to have that conversation, and then you figure it out and try and learn.
So how does your relationship change throughout the years?
God.
Besides the whole 9-year long distance thing.
I mean, well, we don't have that every week is a reunion thing, which I think had presented challenges when it ended, because I think, aside from any ADD, I just think the excitement factor of seeing each other, that dopamine hit was different, right? It was every day, and we saw each other every day, and so we've had to figure out how to recreate that, whether it's going on traveling or doing something fun or whatever. We've really, I think, been very deliberate about that. I think we're embattled now. I mean, I think we've been through a lot. We've had a lot of health, we've had health scares. We've had tragedies. We've had financial challenges that has tested us, that they've tested us. And I think when you come out of all that, you're changed. You're not the same person. And so that now you're living with someone now she's living with someone that's a little different, and so am I. And you always have to kind of ask yourself, is this still cool? And the answer is yes, but for some people it's hard to say yes, and you have to figure out what to do next. Can it be cool? What would have to happen for it to be cool again? And for us, I think when things got stressful, we had to just decide, okay, we're going to make this thing, we're going to fix it so that we're both where we need to be. And we did.
I would imagine it would be tough after, like you said, the dopamine dump when you guys see each other.
Yeah.
Getting used to that kind of schedule to living with each other full time. So did you guys live together full time before you got married?
No, it was after.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's another thing, right?
Yeah. It was after we got married. It was 2019. I moved in March 1st of 2019. And then 3 weeks later, one of my best friends killed himself.
Oof.
And,
sorry to hear that.
And that year was basically me just being an absolute wreck. It was the first of our friend group to die, and all of us, I think, collectively didn't know what to do with ourselves, and so my close friend and I would joke about how much money that guy cost us, just in lost productivity, and then COVID hit.
Oh my God.
And then we had the health scares, and then and then the friend that I was joking with about this, then he passed away. And so it was a lot. You come out of that stuff, and it was just a series of things that added up. But now it's like, I'm so proud of us. I'm so proud of us. I'm so glad. And when she was sick, when she was getting treatment, I felt so scared, I've lost friends to cancer and breast cancer. And, I knew a bit about it. And I was really scared. But thankfully we weren't scared for too long. Like, there were people that, like, we knew we within a relatively short period of time that we had caught it. But it was like, you don't, like, at some point you just stop thinking the way that you were thinking, because things have changed, and you just go, okay, well, it's different now. And I'll tell you, I'm really, I'm so happy now. Like, I'm just so happy that we got through that period of time. There will be more. I mean, that's just life. That's there will be other things that are coming our way. I'm sure that's how it works. But I definitely think that we now have the tools to do it and to get through it, as long as we're both together and alive.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah, you guys have overcome a lot so far.
Yeah.
So those things, they make you either, separate, or they build a stronger bond.
Yeah.
And it seems like you guys have built that strong bond.
Oh, for sure. I promised her the movie ending, So
there you go.
That's
Which movie?
No kidding. I didn't specify which movie.
All right.
In a world where Brian's a complete ass. So, yeah.
So what does being a husband mean to you? Like, as far as the word husband.
Well, tonight it means a bowling competitor.
There you go.
We joined I joined a bowling team, and then I convinced her that it's the Big Labruskis. It's like a complete farce of a league, but it's so much fun. And so I convinced her, and now she's got her own team, so we're competitors. And tonight's our bowling night. But what does it mean? Man, it means commitment, right? I mean, that's the, every marriage starts as a statement of intent, right? Mm-hmm. And then the rest of your marriage is is a demonstration of your loyalty to that intent, right? And that's pretty much how I look at it, and I think that's, you know, how everybody that's successful in marriage has to look at it at some level.
No, I think that's a great answer. I like asking that question to the guys on the podcast because it's interesting to hear the different answers, you know.
Yeah,
And some guys, they don't really have an answer. It's something they haven't really thought about. But
yeah,
when I ask them, what do you think a wife is? Or what do you think the definition of a wife is? Or what does that mean? Then they have an answer, you know?
yeah, yeah. uh, you know, I mean, to me, she's my partner, uh, in every sense. Um, you know, every day she wakes up, and if she wakes up before me, I get up pretty early. But if she wakes up before me, she does a little, like, we call it the scoot, but it's basically a stupid little dance, right? And it's usually, you know, she's, for whatever reason, her hair lends itself in the morning to kind of a Tina Turner, like, you know, thing. And she does her little scoot just to make me laugh, you know. I guess, I mean, that's the kind of relationship we have, right?
Mhm.
And like, we write comedy together, like we write jokes, you know. So it's like, for me, she's more than, like, the concept of a wife feels too, I don't know. The word antiquated is popping in my head, but
Mhm.
she is my wife, but what a wife is, I don't know, because she's not just a wife
All right.
to
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
That's great that you guys. So one of the next questions I was going to ask is, how do you keep your relationship fresh? But doing a little scoot in the morning,
Yeah.
you know, joining a bowling league.
Well,
I think that'd be fun.
recently we had a no new pets rule, right?
Okay.
And recently she violated that. I went out of town to a wedding, and she sent me this text. You know, our youngest daughter found a little kitten, right? And I'm like, she didn't find the kitten. I know you guys. Like, she didn't find the kitten. Get out of here. And so I'm like, okay, I guess I have a cat now. I'm not really happy about it, but whatever. You know, it's not the worst thing to happen. And so I get home, and they're like, "Oh, we have some," you know, because I was traveling, I was hungover from this wedding, and
Mhm.
then traveling 10 hours and all this other stuff, and I'm really beat. I, you know, just drove through LA traffic for an hour and a half after I got home. So I come in, and, oh, we'll have a taco ready for you and a bourbon. So I walk in, I put my bag down, and she hands me a bourbon, and then one of the kids hands me this bag, like this Chipotle bag, and inside the bag was another cat in a taco outfit. It was his brother, right? So now I've got two orange kittens, right? That keeps it lively.
Violated the rule twice.
Yeah.
So this leads into the
But
next
she's like,
question.
but they're like the most fun little cats, and I'm so happy we have them. And it's like, she knew better, you know. She
Mhm.
knew better. So, you know, we keep it lively by just figuring out. I mean, you know, sometimes we just go out and hit the bar and just talk to people. But you know, we go bowling. We do mundane things and try and make them less mundane.
So speaking on the cat issue, how do you get over fights?
It's a great question. It's a question that like I said, I ask other people. I think it starts with space. Uh, it usually ends with a joke of some kind. You know, I think we were both relatively hotheads. I tend to. It takes me longer to ramp down. Um, I think she's quicker to get angry. I'm quicker to get over it, or sorry, slower to get over it.
Mhm.
And but I think uh, we generally get past it fairly quickly. It's just sometimes you just have to wake up the next day and just say, this really wasn't important. It tends to be more about tone than substance. And so I think once we're in a better mood, then the tone issue's solved, and the substance is not important because we were generally in agreement. So it's just we don't fight that much. We bicker sometimes, and we do a lot of play bickering. So, but I think I think most of the time it's just waking up the next morning. People say don't go to bed angry or whatever. Well, okay, whatever. It doesn't, whether you go to bed angry or you don't. I think sometimes you need a little bit of time to just let the hormones settle on both ends and calm down a bit and do something else, and then remember that you really want to be with this person. You want them to be happy. And you don't want them to feel insulted either. So because that's not what you meant anyway.
Yeah. I listened to this one clip, and it was Jordan Peterson, and he said people that are trying to win an argument with their wife, they don't realize that at the end, if you win, that means she lost and now she's defeated, and you don't want your wife to feel defeated.
Well, right. When I first started doing this work, I really didn't understand how people that were really angry with each other for some slight or offense or something, whatever it was, could then just sit down at a dinner table and talk about their feelings, and we work it out. And it's like, how the hell does that happen? Like, first of all, how do you get both parties to have a rational conversation, right? Like, I don't understand this. How do you do this? And I think what you just said, it identifies how. It's like, okay, what's winning here, right? What is it her apologizing to me for something? Is it her feeling validated because I am aware of whatever I did to make her upset to begin with? Whatever it was. Did this escalate quickly in a different direction because we were, we're not thinking clearly? Is this one of our end of the night, we both drank a little bit too much and we're too fired up kind of things? Or is this one, or is it really actually have some meaning behind it? And if you really can get a conversation going if you're willing to look for what winning means for both of you. Doesn't mean you're going to actually win, but it definitely can start the conversation.
Yeah. It's more, the way you put it, it's more like a team, right? As a team, the two people come together, and if winning is what the team is supposed to do, if you talk like individuals, then it's more like a winner and a loser,
And look, you're not going to agree on everything. You are going to have moments where people are just going to be pissed off, and that's it. Right. And that's when you have to wake up the next day or whatever. At some point you wake up and you say, okay, well, we're not divorcing over this. This isn't, there's nothing to argue about anymore. We've said what we said. So are there things within it that you did in the course of arguing that made it worse that maybe you would retract if you could? And maybe that's where you need to look at in those moments and not fight the central argument, but think about the way the thing went down and the delivery of it, and okay, well, I guess I shouldn't have said that part of it, which is, maybe not a full apology, but it's a good, it's a start. It's at least they're trying, or at least I'm trying, and it may not be sufficient at that moment, but it's you're heading back to each other at some level.
How do you guys look at divorce? Is it something that you talk about, joke about, like something you talked about before you got married?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm a big fan of divorce. I think it was the best thing for me at one point in time, and it was absolutely the right thing for me at that time because that was what needed to happen. So I have no problem with divorce as a concept. And I'm sure there are people out there listening that maybe they should get divorced. Maybe it's not going to work. Maybe they should be with somebody else. But I don't think I do joke about divorce, but not when there's any kind of conflict. Yeah. No. Look. I mean, you stay married because you marriage it requires both parties to consent to it, right? You have to. You are always at the mercy of the other person's opinion here. And some people get divorced against their wildest dreams and hopes and wishes. And that's sad. But for us, I think I don't think we ever really seriously contemplated it, even in our hardest times. I think there might have been nights where we were frustrated, and didn't know what to do and imagined what it would be like. But we never gave up the idea that this could be fixed or that one of us would relent in whatever disagreements we might have had. But I think but look, we went to marriage counseling. We definitely felt like that was a good call for us, and because we realized like we need a little help figuring it out. We were intent on figuring it out in a good way, and that it wasn't to help each other understand what was wrong. It was to help us figure out how to make it right. And that's a very different intent than if you go into a marriage counseling because the complaints aren't being answered. Really, it was more like, how do we fix this in a good way? And that's, I think, why it worked.
What are your thoughts on marriage counseling as a whole?
Great if you got the right person. Yeah. I mean, it could go both ways. I've been, if the purpose of the marriage counselor is to validate somebody's feelings at the expense of the other person, then it's not going to work, and sometimes you go in too late and it's already baked and there's nothing. The only thing that the marriage counselor can do is save somebody's ego.
Yeah. Get some money.
Yeah, I mean, like they're trying, but they know it ain't working. But I mean, I really am a believer that a great one can change people very quickly. And I mean, we only went a few sessions, and all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, I remember saying, I just want less drama, and he's like, and no dramatic reactions, and I go, oh. Yeah, that's me. He's talking to me.
Nice.
and it stuck with me. And I'm like, okay, am I having am I over the top in my reaction to whatever slight argument we're having? And so yeah, it took a little. I've gone. This job has changed me too. The trauma, you can go through trauma and that'll change you. You go through, but failures, that'll change you. But this job has really opened my eyes to, the patterns of behavior that I were kind of adopted just maybe because of my family, but also just because of the relationships I've had previously. And then you see it done differently. You go, oh, okay, that's a new technique, And so I've softened a lot in how I think about it. I'm not nearly as rigid a person as I used to be, and certainly was in my first marriage.
Yeah, I've had a couple people on, maybe even 15 people that have maybe plus that have gone to marriage counseling, and a lot of them had great things to say.
Yeah.
It's been good to hear. One of my last guests, he had mentioned that he had the wrong counselor at first, and then they had a conversation, they switched counselors, and great from then on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's I think that's important to note, is that you could just have a bad one if it's not working out for you.
You know, I think prior to having a good one, and perhaps and prior to talking to people that had marriage counselors before they got married, just as a preparatory kind of thing, uh, I think I would have been slow to say we got marriage counseling because it sounds bad. You know, it sounds like we had bigger problems than we actually did,
Yeah.
um, and I really, you know, like even now, like I'm open about saying that we did it because I think people should feel a lot uh, more comfortable trying to get help when they need it. I mean, that's the job that I have now with work. It's I think most people, I think societally, people are used to going to therapists. It's fine if like every guy I know has been to therapy now. It's just like a thing that we all do because it works for most people at some level, and there's no stigma attached to it anymore. It's just something we do. And and I think that's part of that's part of the reason that younger people are so apt to say, "Oh yeah, we sat down and we talked about our feelings." It's like that you learned that because your parents went to therapy, like,
Yeah.
right? Like my parents
Yeah.
didn't go to therapy; they just yelled it out, you know. And but now we're seeing a generation that has grown up with parents that were more balanced in their approach. And I don't mean to blame my parents for anything because they did, you know, they're great and they did the best they could. But this is now we've got people that were like more trained, perhaps,
Mhm.
at this kind of thing. So,
Yeah, I kind of wonder why that is, why there's such a stigma to the marriage counseling thing. Because every time I hear it and somebody says it, I kind of, you know.
yeah,
But like you said, therapy, it's becoming a very normal thing. So why is it marriage counseling? Why is that such an issue?
yeah.
Maybe it's movies. I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's just that like now more people are talking about their feelings. You know, social media, we're sharing more of our um our difficulties with each other. So it's you know, I think it's one of those deals where it's okay to be sad. And I mean, uh um mental health is a bigger topic now for everybody in every way. You know, we're more aware of people's challenges, um and which means we're more aware of the solutions too. So
Yeah, sounds good. Um, yeah, this is pretty much all I have for you. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? Want to bring up, mention, if about your business?
well, first of all, anybody that, you know, would like help in any speaking engagement that they have, and with either the writing or the delivery coaching or anything else, you know, just go to vowsandspeeches.com and reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you. But no, I think I would just want to like summarize that like Nicole is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I mean, she really is. I mean,
Mm,
my life is fun, and you know, I don't just feel supported. I feel empowered, and I'm very lucky that she's, you know, she's had her faith in me enough to go through a lot. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there that go, "Oh man, she must be nuts." Right? I mean, she to go through a long distance relationship, you know, to the career changes and you know, the stresses of all of those things can be crazy. I mean, look at the way I planned the proposal, but
mm,
uh, but I think that faith is two ways, and she's, but for me, it's like uh, having somebody like that is incredible. So I'm really excited for our future. Um, you know, as long, I'm sure there will be things that we have to work through, but man, uh, I, I've never felt more capable of doing that. So thank you for the opportunity to get to talk about it. It's really cool.
Oh yeah, this has been great. I appreciate you reaching out to me. I appreciate talking to you. It's actually been a lot of fun. I hope you had some fun.
Oh, absolutely. I sure did.
I never know
you.
what to expect with, people I haven't met before. I don't really know.
Sorry, we had a little hiccup in the force.
Yeah, we had a little hiccup there. But it was great to talk to you. And I was saying I don't really know you. We never met, so especially these conversations through the web, I find it hard to get going, but it was easy with you. So I appreciate you being such a good guest.
Thank you. Really, really a pleasure to be here. Good to get to know you a little.
Yeah. Well, that's the end of the podcast, and I just want you to know it is okay to love your wife.